Yo guys, I uploaded the video last night and one of them got blocked and the other one got copyright strike. Keep in mind, it doesn't have any fucking music. Alright? Seriously, what the hell are you doing, YouTube? Fuck. But hey, it's your boy Chris. Today we're gonna be reacting to Nevada Tan, Tragedy Turn Meme by ReignBot. You know, y'all know what it is. Like the video, subscribe to my channel, hit the bell button for post notifications. If you have any suggestions, comment down below. Wanna see more of my reaction videos? Head down to my playlist. With that being said, let's get into the intro.
This video is brought to you by NordVPN.
Yo.
So in case
Seriously,
you
YouTube,
somehow haven't
like,
heard of this
bro.
company, then A, you haven't watched my channel enough,
Kinda
and B,
disappointed
you're in
with it,
luck because
because like,
NordVPN is
edit
here
the
to help you
video
take
so
back
much.
control
Also,
of
like,
your
bro,
internet experience.
YouTube gotta fix this
and
shit,
they're
bro.
having
Like,
a
I mean,
limited time Black
there's a
Friday
lot of
sale.
these
None
piranhas
of us want
abusing this
creeps,
shit.
be it shady individuals
The
or
copyright,
companies, snooping on our data.
Bi-
And that's
bull
especially
BS
true
shit,
this year
like,
when more than ever
they're
we're stuck
abusing it,
online with nothing else to
Annoying
do.
as
With
hell.
NordVPN, you'll be completely set thanks to their super
Doesn't
fast
even have
servers,
music to begin
24/7
with.
customer support,
Shit.
unlimited bandwidth, and top-notch military-grade encryption. Head on over to nordvpn.com/ReignBot to take advantage of this limited time deal and use promo code ReignBot for 68% off a 2-year plan plus 4 whole additional months absolutely free. Yes, you're getting a chunk of the year for absolutely nothing extra. And if you're unconvinced for whatever reason, NordVPN also has a 30-day money-back guarantee. Again, that's nordvpn.com/ReignBot and promo code ReignBot for 68%
Oh,
off
let's
the
just
2-year
get
plan
over it,
plus 4 months
Come on.
absolutely free.
Finally, Nevada Tan.
Children are the very definition of innocence, and it's hard to imagine them being capable of anything remotely close to what adults describe as evil. Even suggesting that a child could do something intentionally malicious is bound to ruffle up some feathers, but if we dig deep enough, there exist tales that paint a much different picture. One of the most notorious examples of this centers around a 10-year-old girl named Mary Bell. Back in the 60s, Mary strangled 2 toddlers to death on 2 separate occasions. And in case you were wondering if there maybe was some kind of misunderstanding, there was not. After murdering her second victim, Mary later returned to mutilate his corpse. But there's a good chance you probably already knew about this case. So today we're going to talk about a similar story that took place thousands of miles away and decades later. One that unfolded as the modern internet was forming, leading to a new kind of infamy for the person in question.
The incident.
When you hear the name Nagasaki, it's almost impossible to picture anything other than tragedy, and unfortunately, this story is right in line with that theme. More specifically, this tale brings us back to the summer of 2004 to a city within Nagasaki called Sasebo. The day was June 1st, and the 6th grade class at Okubo Elementary School was getting ready for their lunch break. Nothing seemed all that out of the ordinary, aside from one small detail. The teacher in charge of the class noticed that 2 of her female students had gone missing, and while this was odd, it wasn't necessarily an immediate cause for concern.
Not really.
But
Especially
little did they know, just next door, in an empty classroom, tragedy was about to strike. Just as the students were about to dig in, one of the 2 missing girls reappeared, but something was very, very wrong with her. She was covered with blood, and in her hand was an equally bloodied box cutter. The teacher feared the worst,
Holy shit,
that the little girl had taken the blade to herself, but that's when she said something that no one saw coming. "This isn't my blood." The little girl then pointed down the hallway, and that's when what had happened became clear. The other missing girl, 12-year-old Satomi Mitarai, was found face down in her own blood with a deep 4-inch gash on her neck, along with several other slashes on her arms and hands.
What?
By this point, the school staff were in a panicked
Why did
frenzy,
you do that
but
though?
unfortunately, there was nothing that they or the paramedics could do to save the young girl's life. Satomi bled to death right there on the floor of her very own school. Meanwhile, the girl responsible for her murder, now legally dubbed Girl A, was interviewed
Pause,
by
guys. Some of you might not know this, but it's terrible to bleed dying, you know? It's terrible to bleed out loud. For real, I got stabbed in the neck. Right here. In the chin. In the chin. I got stitches on here. Don't ask how I got stabbed with it, you know? It was a knife, by the way. So yeah, it's terrible to bleed, you know? You just put your body numb. Feel so cold, you know?
police, and that's when the full story began to unfold. Sobbing, Girl A explained that she had managed to lure Satomi into the classroom simply by asking her. A quick "come here for a second" was enough to get Satomi into the room and seated while Girl A drew the curtain shut. Girl A then stood behind Satomi, put her hands over Satomi's eyes, and then drove the box cutter deep into her throat,
Holy
causing her to
shit,
flail
this girl,
before
bro.
the attack continued. To make things even more disturbing,
Here's
Girl
put
A
like this.
didn't head to the classroom to alert her teacher immediately after this. In
Cold-blooded.
fact, there was actually about a 15-minute gap where Girl A simply stood there and watched Satomi bleed out. None of this made sense for an 11-year-old girl to carry
damn.
out, something so calculated and malicious. The adults of the community were left stunned, confused even. At that moment, it was most likely close to impossible to even make sense of what had just happened. While trying to rationalize this story, one might ask if maybe this was actually a freak accident that simply looked
No,
like
that's
a
not an
murder.
accident.
After all, an 11-year-old girl might not know how to spell out the difference while in panic over what happened, but unfortunately, that was not the case. As it turns out, the two girls had a checkered past, and at the center of the conflict was the internet. According to Girl A,
What do you mean checkered
Satomi
past?
had made mean comments about her online and was a bit of a bully. At some point, for reasons that are
Okay.
ultimately unknown, Girl A snapped, and that's when she actually began to premeditate this murder. This was not a spur of the moment decision. In
Yo.
fact, Girl A even weighed out her options and drew up a plan of action in her head over the previous weekend. Keep in mind, these girls were 11
This
and
is so
12 years
creepy
old,
as hell,
and
bro.
it goes without saying that most childhood conflicts do not result in murder. Panicked parents
Holy
tried to wrap
shit.
their heads
I just
around
imagine
why
this
this
kid, like,
happened, but finding out the
concocting
answer
a plan,
proved to
like,
be
bro,
infinitely
silently,
complicated.
like,
By all accounts,
yeah,
Girl A
yeah, I'ma
was
kill
considered
this
normal
fucking
by the
bitch
school staff
soon,
and
real soon.
didn't
I just
have
gotta
any
find the
obvious
right
issues.
timing, you know.
However,
Like
during
that,
her
brother,
trial,
fucking
Girl A
creepy as
was
hell.
diagnosed with a developmental disorder, something challenged by other doctors. The thing is, though,
What is
even
development
if
disorder?
the diagnosis was correct, it would be both inaccurate and irresponsible to blame this crime solely on her condition. In 2005, a Japanese journalist by the name of Atsuko Kusanagi released a book detailing this case, and said book has provided the bulk of information for both this video and several other sources. In it, Kusanagi brings up accusations against Girl A's father, who was suspected of abuse, something that he denied multiple times when approached by local media. Still, this offers no real solutions, as most people who have experienced trauma don't end up turning into
Bro, it's already
killers.
there to begin with. It's a bully, you know. Bully got stabbed. Shit's just
During
died,
times
you know.
of mourning,
It's
when
just
a
as
clear answer isn't available, we humans have a tendency to fall
It's
into
nothing new to
moral
that.
panic, blaming any convenient scapegoat that we can for some temporary relief. In this case, much like so many others, Girl A's interests and hobbies were dissected and subsequently blamed for what happened. Especially of note was Girl A's love of the horror genre. Her room was found with novels like The Ring and One Missed Call, but what stuck out the
Okay.
most was her interest in Battle Royale, which, if you're not aware, is a novel and film about a class forced to fight to the death until only one remains. Think Hunger Games, but from the 90s and rated R. The Nagasaki Shimbun reported just
Pause,
days
pause.
after the murder that
Pause. This is why you don't give children gore videos, gore movies and shit. You don't let them watch some adult shit, because they will get influenced by it. They will be influenced by it. They will think in their head it's okay to do this kind of thing because we watch it in the video, so it's okay to do this kind of thing, That's what they're thinking. They're thinking it's gonna be normal like that, if you act like that.
Girl A was a fan of both the novel and film adaptation, and what really caught people's attention was the fact that in May of that year, the little girl even wrote Battle Royale fan fiction. The same article also mentions another bit of horror fiction found bookmarked on Girl A's computer, an internet urban legend called The Red Room. Now, if you've heard of this term, then you might be thinking of the dark web and snuff live streams, but this version is a bit different. Instead, it involves somewhat of a curse that finds its victims via an online pop-up ad, one that asks, "Do you like the Red Room?" Now, I'm not going to go into full details about this, but if you want to know more about this specific topic, then I highly suggest this video by Nihongo Johnny. But anyway, the Red Room curse's ultimate consequence is that its victim would commit suicide, resulting in a room drenched in blood, hence a red room. Again, this is essentially just a creepypasta and was also adapted into a flash game. All things considered, it's not really all that unusual that Girl A, who was already a fan of horror, would also be into something like this as well. Parents could blame whatever
Pause. Guys, my opinion, a lot of these people, especially parents, underestimate the influence of creepypasta. They underestimate the influence of creepypasta so much. Look at like Slenderman, There's this two girls tried to kill one of the girls, their friend. They stabbed them, right? And then they said like in the police, they're gonna do it because like Slenderman tell them to do it. Don't underestimate the influence of creepypasta, bro. Like, kids gotta get influenced by it.
What they wanted, but that ultimately wouldn't help preventing anything like this from happening again. In fact, this incident wasn't even the first time this happened in the area. According to the New York Times, just a year earlier in a nearby town, a 12-year-old boy was accused of kidnapping, molesting, and then murdering a toddler. And in 2001, Japan lowered its age of criminal responsibility from 16 to 14. This following the 1997 beheading of a 10-year-old boy at the hands of a 14-year-old. The case of Girl A, now known as the Sasebo slashing, reignited the national dialogue, leading many to question if the legal age of criminal responsibility had to be lowered yet again, but that ultimately never happened. As I mentioned earlier, the little girl who killed her classmate was legally dubbed Girl A. This was due to Japanese law and the fact that the killer was a minor.
Where did the Nevada-tan
Her
came
identity
from?
was never supposed to be revealed, but a Japanese TV station covering her story accidentally doxed her after showing B-roll of her schoolwork, which was signed. The station simply neglected to censor it, and that's when the internet got involved and gave Girl A new nickname. Class photos featuring both Girl A and Satomi were leaked online, and in them, Girl A was usually seen wearing this hoodie, one from the University of Nevada in the US. It's unclear what connection Girl A had to the university, if any, but nonetheless, it became part of her user-generated online persona. And while her real name had been leaked online, she would instead be dubbed Nevada-tan by users all over the world. Nevada, obviously, due to her hoodie, and Tan, a baby talk version of the Chan honorific suffix. Soon enough, Nevada Town became a full blown early meme, complete with fan art and cosplay, many finding something humorous about the idea that such a small girl was capable of
No,
doing something
what?
so grisly. And in case you had any doubts about how widespread this was at the time, the University of Nevada had to stop selling the hoodies Girl A was wearing after they became their best selling item, obviously for all the wrong reasons. Nevada Town was dubbed the
Oh, imagine, imagine like having the best selling items that you have for wrong reasons. Because of a killer, because of a kid who kills someone in their school,
the
Yo,
quote
you
cutest
gotta put
killer
a
in
stop to it
Japan.
though.
And if you watched my last Stories from Our Disturbing World video, then you'll recall a similar instance where a girl who tried to kill her boyfriend went viral and was dubbed the quote most beautiful killer. In both cases, it's practically
Huh?
impossible to tell what's
No.
trolling and what's genuine admiration, and while that may be confusing to a lot of people, you could also argue that it isn't exactly surprising, given that it's the internet. It's not news to anyone that edgy humor, just for the sake of being edgy, is kind of a hallmark of the online world. Still, these
Yeah.
online users, of course, were pretty far removed from the reality of what happened, and anyone living in Sasebo City would probably feel a lot different about it. In fact, the incident has had lasting effects on the area, and especially the campus where the murders took place. The school decided to designate the anniversary of Satomi's death as basically a life appreciation day, where young students gather together and are taught by the staff to value life and to be kind to one another, although they don't explicitly say why or how that tradition started. Now, that may sound a little overkill,
So are we
but
gonna
10
just
years after
forget the
Satomi was
bullying part
murdered, another
that is
student
happening
on
in their
student
school?
slaying happened yet again in Sasebo City.
I'm not
This
saying it's
time, the
justified
girls
though. I'm
involved
just
were a
saying,
few years older, and the actual murder itself happened off campus, but nonetheless, old wounds were once again reopened. That case and the 2004 incident weren't connected, and Sasebo doesn't necessarily see more violent juvenile crime than anywhere else in the world, but given all of this, plus the other unrelated cases, it's kind of easy to see how parents might resort to moral panic even if it's illogical. In the end, it may be a tough pill to swallow, but there is no guaranteed way to predict these things, no way to prevent tragedy from striking, and for many, that very fact alone is paralyzing. In 2008, Girl A, or by that point Nevada-tan, was released and rejoined the general population with a new name and presumably a new path in life. As for where she is now, no one really knows, but one can only hope that she
yeah,
never hurts anyone else ever again.
I don't know about that.
Today's video would not have been possible.
Guys, I'm gonna ask you guys, does this often happen? Like kids killing each other, Like beheading each other, stabbing each other. Does this happen often? Also, I want to point out that they just disregard the fact that the kid was bullying the other kid who killed the kid. What? Alright, girl B got killed because she's bullying girl A. And like, everybody that, like, bro, I'm just saying, alright, I'm not blaming the victim, I'm just saying that it wouldn't happen if you just didn't bully the person, you know what I'm saying, bro? Come on, this happens too often. Like in America, the shootings in school, like, bro, it happens because sometimes it's a mental disorder, health disorder, something, just not right in the head. Also, sometimes bullying and shit. This doesn't get addressed too very often because, like, bro, principals and the people in the school just kinda put it buried under the rug because they don't want to get hate in their schools. They don't want to get the fire. They don't want to catch the fire in school and get criticized for it, which is why they often like try to hide as much information about bullying and why it caused killings and shit as much as possible to prevent anyone from making scandalous claims in their like schools and shit. Yeah, that is good video, man. Like, It's creepy as hell, but it's also funny that internet make it more meme, you know? They're making more memes out of it. So yeah, that's Nevada Tan tragedy turn meme. Like the video, subscribe to my channel, hit the bell button for post notifications. If you have any suggestions, comment down below. With that being said,